In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the side rear view mirror on this Ford F-450. I'm going to work on the driver's side, but the same procedure will apply on the passenger side. Let's get started. Let's start at the top. We'll pop out this trim panel here. Use a plastic trim tool and pry it away. It just has a couple push clips on the back side, and these two are all that's holding this in, so set it aside. Now let's remove the window switches. Pop that up, also with a plastic trim tool. There we go. Once you take it out, on the back side you'll see two electrical connectors. Remove those and set the switch panel aside. Underneath the grab handle you'll see this trim piece. Remove it. This is just a cover for these two 7mm bolts. Remove those as well. At the bottom of the door panel, you'll see two more 7mm screws. Remove those as well. Now with everything out of the way, lift up on the door panel and it should pop out of place. Don't go too far though, the mirror switch is still connected. Pop the mirror switch off, set the panel aside. Before we unbolt the mirror, let's unplug the electrical connector. There's a red locking tab that you have to pry outward, and then you can press on the other lock and pull the connector out. Slide it into the door and just let it hang there. It will come out of the door once you remove the mirror. Over here you'll see two holes that have two fasteners exposed. There are two more for the mirror right here behind these larger covers, so pop these out. And you'll see in total 4 11mm mounting nuts. I'm going to take the two on the bottom off first so that I can leave the easier ones to get to for last so that the mirror doesn't fall off. And these are more difficult to get to just because they're in further into the door. Also, try not to drop the mounting nuts in the door. If you need to use a magnet to fish them out after you unthread them, go ahead and do that. On this last one, I'm going to support the mirror so it doesn't fall off. There we go. There's your mirror. On this new mirror, we have to install the mounting studs. There's going to be a wider threaded area and a narrower one. The wider one goes into the mirror. This, by the way, is a 10mm cutout, so you need a 10mm socket to tighten these up. I'm just going to start them all in by hand, and then you don't need to make these crazy tight. I'm just going to take my socket on the impact and snug them up. As soon as you tighten the nut on this side, even if this is just snug, not very tight, the nut will actually pull on both ends of this stud and will clamp it all together tightly. Now grab the new mirror. The first thing you want to do is feed the harness through. Don't worry too much about where it ends because we will have to fish it out from the inner part of the door panel regardless. So just put it down into place. Fish the rest of the wiring harness through the door. We'll get it out through the other side later. Line up all the bolt holes with the studs, hold the mirror, and the easiest one to get to is this top one, so I'm just going to start one mounting nut on to hold the mirror. Alright, now you can let go and install the rest of them. There are 3 more. You'll notice that as I tighten them, the mirror gets pulled up against the door. That's normal. That's this seal here squishing, and that's what you want. If that doesn't happen, and the seal doesn't seal up properly, not only can you get wind noise inside the cab through the door here, but water can also leak in. Now just make sure they're all snug. Now at the end, I like to do this manually so that I can feel how tight these bolts are. As you can see, this one loosened up again. And I'm just gonna put an even amount of pressure on all of them. That way that gasket seals up evenly. And because it squishes, what happens is as you tighten some, the first one or two that you went over will loosen up because there's now more squish in the gasket. Okay, so that one feels good. That one's still good. Still good. Oh, that one had a little. So there we go. That's good to go. Let's put these caps back on. It's important so that you don't get any water leaks or wind noise that could still make its way in here. These did not take any caps. Now let's fish the harness out through the door. Mine happens to have gone, thankfully, the right way, but basically, if you see this bolt right here, it actually holds the window track, so you want to make sure, you can stick your finger here, you want to make sure it goes in front of it, not behind it, and then through where the window would go. So because in my case the window's down, it actually can't do that, which is better. Otherwise, if your window's up and you do that, as soon as you roll the window down, it'll literally cut the cables. So you want to try to pull this harness through the hole. It's going to be a little challenging just because it's a fairly wide connector. And then on this particular mirror, we also have this piece right here. But either way, it's pulled through now. If you wanted to test it at this point to make sure the window will not interfere with the cable, you can, but I can feel it run along the door right here, which is great, and then it swoops up into the mirror. So at this point, make sure this is out of the way, and let's plug it in. Oops, the lock is locked, so if it doesn't plug in, pull the lock out. There we go, click it, and put this lock back in. There we go. This, you can either use some double-sided tape, stick it to the door, or just put it behind this vapor barrier. Try not to put it inside the door because there is quite a bit of wire, and just like I mentioned before with the main harness, you don't want this to get caught on the window as it slides up or down. So I'm just going to leave it here. It shouldn't make any noise because once the door panel goes on, it'll hold it flat up against the door, so it shouldn't rattle around much. Now let's put the door panel back. Make sure your vapor barrier is on the door at this point. Let's reconnect the mirror switch with the smaller of the two gray connectors. When you line up the door panel, you want to make sure that all these hooks along the outer part of the door panel actually hook into the door and then slide down to lock in. At the top here, you also want to make sure that the lock indicator pokes through the door, or the door panel, I should say. And once you think you have all those hooks locked in or lined up, tap it down. And that's it. You should not see a gap along the door. As you can see, I see a gap here, so clearly those aren't locked in, so I'm going to pull it back up. There we go. That's better. Now it's flush up against the door all the way around. You want to pay attention to that, otherwise your door panel won't be mounted properly. Now at the bottom of the door, let's put the two 7mm screws back, start them in, and tighten them up. Once they get snug, don't crank on them because they only screw into plastic, so you'll strip the plastic out if you go too far. There we go, right there. Right there. And the two right in the center of the door panel. Snug these up. These do go into metal, but you still want to be careful not to over tighten them. Okay, let's put this cover back in. You can see that it has hooks on the top and little tabs that lock in on the bottom. Snap that back in place. Now reconnect your window switch and the lock switch. Slide this down. It's going to have two metal locking clips here that have to line up with each corresponding hole. Tap it down. Same two metal clips for this that have to line up with the door right here. Once you line it up, tap it in place, and there you have it. Just put in new bulbs, unless you want to transfer over your old ones, but might as well put new ones in. Your mirror should come with several new bulbs. Now get the lens that is for the appropriate size, so they are side specific. I'm going to tuck these in as far as possible, and you want to make sure that when you put the lens on, you don't put the wrong side on. So even though both sides do fit, this one actually would be the wrong side. So looking at it from the outside, you can't tell. However, looking at it from the back side, you'll see that one of the bulb sockets will have 3 locking tabs, whereas the other one has 2. The one with the 3 tabs, as you can see here, needs to be on top. So that's how you know whether you have the correct or the wrong side. Take these, line them up, press them in, turn it clockwise to lock them in, just like that. Tuck the wiring back into the mirror so that it doesn't get clipped and pinched by this lens. And once you line it up, it should kind of want to slide into place by itself, so just tap it. And that's it. It's locked in. You would do the same to the other side at this point. If you haven't replaced your mirror, this mirror should come with 2 lenses and 4 bulbs so that you can have both of them look the same on both sides. That way you don't have one orange and one dark lens. So let's put the cap on. Make sure you line it up. Once it feels like it's lining up, just tap it in place. There you have it.